Hello and welcome. This game is truly amazing. Of course, talking about Crosswind, and it's even more amazing when you consider right now all we have is a pre-alpha playtest, which is already better, I would say, than 90% of any early access game right now. And probably, let's be honest, it's probably better than a lot of fully released games. So is Crosswind a definitive pirate survival game? I think it sure is going to be. Just keep in mind though, any footage you might see in the background of the video is from a pre-alpha game and it isn't the finished game, so things might change going forward. So what is Crosswind? Crosswind is a free-to-play, free-to-play survival game. It's set in the age of piracy and it combines fantasy and myth with real historic figures from the age of piracy, and it's sort of set between the 16th and 18th century is where the dev team are drawing inspiration from. It's a mix of solo and co-op gameplay. It's got PvE, mostly PvE, but there is aspects of PvP in the game available. And the dev team have said the end game will have diverse PvE and PvP content that will get constant updates. Although Crosswind 100% has that sandbox feel where you can play how you like, go at your own pace and explore, build, craft, fight wherever and whenever you feel like it. It has a story-based quest system which helps you explore the world and adds the feeling that you're a part of an interesting story, which rewards you along the way as part of the progression. Crosswind has everything you'd expect from a survival game, including building, crafting, food and buff management, open world exploration with a variety of biomes. There's 3 available at the moment in the pre-alpha on the game test, and they are the coastal jungle, the foothills and the swamp. There's more biomes to come in the future as the game develops. There's a variety of points of interest to explore, which contain loot and enemies, and I have to say the game feels like it really encourages you to explore, and while you're doing that, to check every little nook and cranny you can find for hidden paths, hidden loot. And of course, it's got a good solid combat system, and being a pirate game, yes, it also has ship to ship combat, including boarding, proper boarding action. Board the other ship, kill the enemies, take the loot. It's amazing. And this game definitely encourages you to capture loot by boarding ships, because you get better loot from boarding them. In fact, I don't think you get anything from destroying them. You get some coins if you sink another ship, if you sail over to it as it's sinking, but if you board the ships you actually get loot out of the loot chest on board. So let's talk about the building and crafting mechanics. The building in Crosswind is very good, and before I go into it, let me just say it has zoop. Yes, like Satisfactory, you can zoop out lines, and actually in Crosswind you can actually zoop entire areas of building parts, so you could zoop out a square of flooring kind of thing. It's really good. And as you would expect, there's a progression through the different build pieces and materials which you unlock by exploring and looting. It has a variety of building materials such as fibre and sticks to lumber to stone, etc, and really lets you get creative with your builds. It also has a few different size options with like the floors and the walls and things like that, so you can get really detailed with stuff, and it really lets you be creative when you're building. And to round it out, you have a big selection of decor, which very much like the Valheim decor pieces and build parts in Valheim, on Crosswind the decor increases the comfort of your build, and has a cool little system how that works. Different, depending which materials you're using and sort of what tier they're considered in, defines like how much comfort they add to your build. And it gives a comfort buff as well, increasing stamina regen, health regen, stuff like that while you're rested. Really nice building selection. With the crafting, it also has elements of Valheim, in as much as each crafting bench can be upgraded by unlocking additional parts for them benches, which then allow crafting of new items and parts. And combined again with exploration, that's how you progress through the crafting system. This is also how you progress your equipment, such as armor and weapons. You unlock specific crafting benches. For example, you get an armor bench, you explore a little bit, you'll find upgrades to unlock, which then allow you to put down additional sort of, additions to your crafting benches. Like on Valheim, think with the workbench, you get an anvil that then opens up some different tier of crafting in the workbench. It's simple and it's rewarding, and once again the game constantly encourages you to explore and look for loot, look for treasure chests, and keep progressing. And it's all about exploration. It definitely encourages that. Let's move on to the combat mechanics. So the combat in Crosswind is quite basic, in all honesty, but works very well. With your melee weapons, there's currently a selection of different weapons that have different strengths and styles. You have a basic attack that can be put into a combo, and it will have your character carry out a chain of attacks which can be different on different weapons. You have a heavy attack, which again varies depending on your weapon of choice. Crosswind also has a parry and block mechanic, very similar to sort of Elden Ring and Dark Souls, where well-timed parries can at times at least seem to break enemies' defense and cause a stagger. Also, there's a dash dodge type mechanic which, when timed well, will avoid big attacks or charged attacks, and again some weapons will grant you a buff after dashing. We've also got a selection of ranged weapons, which for me is the musket and pistols. I'm not sure if there's others further into the pre-alpha. Right now though, these are all I have available, but I have found a double-barreled pistol which fires off 2 shots quicker than the normal pistol, so that's kind of cool. The musket can only be held on its own, whereas the pistol can be kept in one hand while you use your other hand to wield, a melee weapon, a rapier, a sword or whatever. The musket does a lot more damage than the pistol, obviously, if you land a headshot, but the pistol reloads faster. And in both cases though, if you stand still, you get a significant increase in your aim. And you also have the ability to lock onto a target. So you can just lock onto a target when you're engaging into enemies, and it makes things easier to dodge. Sometimes I unlock to run away quick, because if I've taken a lot of damage, sometimes I stay locked on, I try and dash, but end up dashing back into the enemy, so I sort of toggle the lock on and off. But yeah, really nice combat system. Again, I only mentioned it at the start of the video, I think. I don't think I've mentioned it since. Just remember what I'm talking about, and anything you'll be seeing in the footage in the video is from the pre-alpha, and it might change. I don't know if this is the full version of their combat system. It seems quite good. It's like I said, it's basic, but there's a bit of depth to it. There's a knack to it. There's little skill, you can feel like you're leveling up yourself and becoming more skillful with things. But again, I don't know whether this is how the combat system's going to stay, but right now this is basically how it's working. Let's move on to stats, buffs, food, etc. So stats in Crosswind, for the playtest at least, were nice and simple. You've got your HP and stamina, of course, and you have 3 food slots available to use food consumables, and they always seem to increase your HP plus give a bonus stat. There's a variety of potions that increase stats, increase damage, reduce damage, etc. There's second chance potions, which are an instant revive potion essentially. There is the last save potions, which are basically fast travel potions which spawn you back at the last bed you set as a spawn point. There's weapon oils to increase weapon damage and add different damage types to weapons, etc. There's a good variety of potions and things like that, or there was in the playtest, so it's a really nice little system they've got, and all sorts of different variations. The stats in Crosswind are obviously your HP and stamina, then you've got vitality, strength, agility, precision and fortitude. Vitality increases your HP, strength increases blunt weapon damage, agility increases slash damage, precision increases pierce damage, and fortitude, which reduces damage taken. All weapons and ammo are affected by the stats, and depending which weapon or ammo you're using, they will require different buffs and potions, etc. So make sure you pay attention to what equipment you're using and then buff up accordingly. It's time to move on to the ship mechanics, and for the playtest at least, the ship mechanics seem nice and simple. Doesn't seem to be any working wind mechanic during the playtest, but that should be different for the release, as there is a clear indicator of wind direction on the bottom of your HUD when you're on your ship and sailing. But in the playtest, it didn't seem to matter which way I faced my ship. The wind didn't affect my ship speed, or it didn't seem to. Your sails adjust themselves automatically with the wind, though again, I'm not sure if that will stay the same for the release. For the controls, you simply use W or S to set forward or backwards on the ship, A and D to turn your ship, and you have 3 speed options going forward. Pressing W once will begin the ship sailing, obviously, which will be at 1/3 speed. Pressing it a second time will get you up to 2/3 speed, and to get the top speed you have to open your top sail by pressing T, which is your top speed available for a period of time. Once the time is up, you have to wait for the ability to recharge, but it is a recharge rather than a cooldown, as you can press T again once the bar is just recharged a little bit. But of course, the longer you leave it, the longer you'll be able to maintain a top speed. Once you complete one of the quest lines to find the navigator, you unlock a quick travel mechanic, which while on your ship, it'll let you press V, which will open up basically a star map will appear around you, and you line your ship up, for example, with Tortuga, and when you're in line with that location, it will prompt you to hold the space bar and it will begin quick travel. For the playtest, the available travel points were Tortuga and Devil's Throat, which is the PvP zone. And of course, once you're at one of them locations, you can travel back to the archipelago, which is the main map where you spend all your time. Ship combat is nice and simple, and it's really good fun, or I found it really fun personally. You can line up a broadside and fire off your cannons. You can select a couple of ammo types. For the playtest, we just had the normal cannonballs and crossbar shot for dealing damage to ship sails and slowing ships. And this is the fun bit. If you get in the correct range and your ship's at the right angle to the enemy ship, it will prompt you to press I to begin boarding, and it's amazing. Yep, you can fully board the enemy ship. Once the shipboarding begins, you'll engage in hand-to-hand combat for control of the ship. Each ship has a set amount of crew. I didn't get the exact numbers, and the playtest ended as I'm making this, so I haven't been able to go back and double check. But basically, depending on the size of your ship, it will govern how much crew that ship has. For example, a cutter will have less crew than a frigate. So if you are in your cutter and you engage with one of the Blackbeard scouts, which is also a cutter, then things are pretty even. If you're in a cutter and you take on a frigate, say, then you'll be outnumbered. So pay attention to the info at the top of the screen when you begin boarding, because it will essentially show you an attrition bar and show you how many leaders are left on the enemy ship. And once you've defeated enough enemy or the leaders, then you'll be successful in your boarding. If you lose all your crew before you get to that point, then you will be defeated, obviously, and your ship will start sinking. But if you're successful, you can open a chest on the enemy ship and you'll get some cash and some loot, which, again, I mentioned in a vid, the game does encourage you to board the ships rather than just sink them. You do get cash from, or you get the coins from sinking the ship, but you don't get as many. If you board the ship, you get money and loot. And also, just to note here that there is transport ships, and they seem to have a slightly different loot table. They still give you coins and loot, but the ones I found at least gave things like spices or coffee and things like that. If you lose a ship in battle and it sinks, you can call it straight back and re-engage the enemy. Personally, I don't like this, and I hope it was just a thing for the playtest, because it makes things too easy, and I don't want it to be like that in the full release. But I'll give my thoughts on how I found the playtest and things at the end of the video, and I'll probably touch on this again there. Right, let's move on to PvP. Unfortunately, I'm a bit gutted about this, but I didn't get to try any of the PvP out during the playtest. But there is PvP. There is an arena type of area in Tortuga where you can fight other players in ground combat. And using the quick travel star map on your ship, you can go to a location called Devil's Throat to take part in PvP naval combat. I did go to that location. Unfortunately, when I tried it, there wasn't anybody online or doing PvP at that time. And I did also go to the arena a couple of times in Tortuga whenever I was in Tortuga, just to see if anyone was there to have a PvP fight with. But again, every time I tried, there wasn't really anyone around. But just keep in mind, obviously this was in the playtest and it's not open to everybody, so depending what time I was there, obviously it would have, there might not have been a lot of people online at the time. So I'm a bit gutted I didn't get to try it, because that would have been cool. At the full release, the dev team have said there will be constant updates to PvP content and PvE content, obviously, but obviously we're talking about PvP here. And I can't talk about the balancing and things like that, etc. But based on the way the combat works, this should be pretty good fun and competitive in the PvP aspect, I think. Of course, gear and ground combat will play a part, but everything should be obtainable by everybody. So hopefully that will result in PvP coming down to just skill. So fingers crossed on that one. Co-op multiplayer. Now this is entirely my fault that unfortunately I didn't get to try this. But I do know it worked in the playtest, and it worked through linking Steam accounts in some way. But again, being the idiot I am, I didn't realise I could enter co-op in the main menu to get the code to give to a friend for them to join me. I thought I had to be given a code to give to my friends or whatever. I didn't realise until literally yesterday, the day before the playtest ended, and I wasn't able to play yesterday. So I didn't get to try it, but it does work. Anyway, it seemed your friend could play whether you was online or not, as data was shared. And currently, again, at least for the playtest, you was able to play with 2 other players in co-op. I think it'd be nice if for the release it'd be increased up to say like 5 or 6. But I'm not sure what the plans are with that in the future. But it definitely worked, and the people I know that did do it enjoyed it, and it did work well, so that's really cool. So before we summarise up the playtest and Crosswind, let me quickly mention the free-to-play aspect. And I do want to mention it, but I've had to do this so many times, I can't keep it short enough. So I'm just going to stick to my opinion on it, okay? So I think free-to-play is really good because it lets people experience the game, and if you then have a microtransaction store to sell cosmetics and maybe quality of life stuff, then you'll be able to generate a good income and people will be able to enjoy the game, and it won't become pay to win. And again, like the fact it'll be free to play, you'll get a lot more people that might not necessarily normally say like survival games, for example, might come and try the game and go, oh, actually I really like this, and then they might buy some armor sets, cosmetic armor sets or something on the store, and you're going to generate money from it. I say this because I played Path of Exile when that came out. I still play it now sometimes, but I played it a lot when it came out. That was free to play with a microtransaction store, and Grinding Gear Games done amazing work with it. Like, as in the money they generated with it from being a free to play game, they managed to keep adding to an amazing game and make it better and better. Obviously that's opinion, but like, you know, they kept making a brilliant game work and stay relevant for many years. So if Crosswind go down that route and they stick to them sort of parameters of only being able to sell purely cosmetic items and maybe quality of life stuff, then I think all will be well. I have seen mentioned possibly selling additional story arcs, which sounds like an expansion, and that's where the water could get a little murky. And again, none of this is set in stone. This was just one random piece of information I'd found and I've seen other people mention. There's no actual details on what that would contain or whether or not that's a set in stone goal that the dev team have. So that'll be all I say on it, other than if they did an expansion, yeah, it'd be very murky water as to how that would work and how it would affect the game. But again, long as they stick free to play, microtransaction store with cosmetic and quality of life items, I can't see the problem with it, and hopefully it would generate enough money for them to keep this game being produced and keep updating it, etc. The one thing I will mention I've seen people discussing as a potential problem with a free-to-play is the amount of hackers it could allow into the game. Again, it's a very in-depth conversation you'd have to have there, and I don't want to make the video any longer than it is, but that has been mentioned, and like I said, nothing set in stone. I do agree possibly that could be an issue, but also for me it doesn't matter what you do monetization wise, you're gonna get hackers appear, and there's not much you can really do about it other than having a solid anti-cheat system of some sort. So yeah, that's probably a topic for another time. Alright, let's wrap this video up. Before I do, if you've made it this far, thank you very much for watching. Hope the video was helpful and insightful, if that's the correct word. Here's just a few of my thoughts on Crosswind so far and the playtest, just to finish out the video. First of all, let's mention two issues really that are the only two issues for me that I can think of, and to be honest they aren't even that bad. But the first one is with the ground combat. Sometimes basically I found it annoying sometimes that you couldn't stop your swing animation to parry an attack, and the reason it was annoying was because 9 out of 10 times when I wanted to parry while I was mid-swing, it was because the enemy I was hitting in the face with my sword would all of a sudden stop doing an animation where they're taking damage and just turn around and smack me back, which I just felt was a bit weird. And like I said, it became frustrating because they were throwing a swing back at me while being hit, but I couldn't stop my swing to counter it. I didn't notice it all the time, just sometimes, and the more I played the game I learnt to play with a different style, I guess, and it became less of a thing, but it still did happen occasionally. But yeah, it wasn't, like I said, that might be a me thing rather than a game thing. The second one is regarding the ability to be able to summon a ship back after it's sunk. So if you're in a naval combat situation, you lose the fight, your ship sinks, you can instantly call that ship back that's just sunk, get back on it and re-engage the enemy, and most of the time if that's happened, the enemy will be on low HP and you're spawning back on full HP, you fire off one shot and the enemy has sunk. I just felt it made it too easy. I liked the fact I didn't lose my ship, but I didn't like the fact it was very easy, and you could see the potential that if it stayed like that, you would basically be able to defeat any ship, no matter how much better it was than yours, just by rinsing and repeating, sinking and recalling your ship until you eventually killed whatever it was you was trying to kill. I feel like the very minimum there should be a 5 to 10 minute cooldown or something along them lines once you've lost your ship. So you sink your ship, that ship is now on a 5 to 10 minute cooldown. Maybe you can still call a different ship, but the one that's just been sunk is on a 5 to 10 minute cooldown. And also the minute the enemy sinks your ship, their health should, if not regen instantly, should begin regenning like they're repairing their ship. Just again, because otherwise it makes it too easy, and I think there should be some risk to it. To summarise, I would say it's been absolutely amazing. The dev team have done a brilliant job with it. They come out of the gates absolutely swinging with this. It is such a good game. You know, I've said it at the start that this is a pre-alpha and it's already better than a lot of games out at full release, let alone it's better than a lot of games that are in early access, for example. But overall, like, it's just good. Like, that's all I can say. It's just good. Straight away, it's good. It runs really smooth. It looks brilliant. The mechanics in every part of the game are really well thought out and work well and are fun. And having essentially a sandbox game, but giving it that line of quests and giving you a story to follow just gives you that extra bit of fun in the game without taking away the sandbox feel. It's just like a nice extra thing to have and makes you feel part of a story kind of thing, I guess. But yeah, like genuinely, I can't think of anything negative to say about the game. And once again, anything you've seen in this video and anything I've talked about could well change. A lot of it probably will change or be modified in some way because this was a pre-alpha. And there we go, guys. I hope the video was helpful and insightful in some way. And if you did make it this far, give it a thumbs up. Go on, you know you want to. No, I'm only kidding. You don't have to if you don't want to, but it would be helpful. And if you do enjoy the video and you want to see some more content, then hit that subscribe button. And if you like watching live streams, you can find me on any of your preferred streaming platforms if it isn't YouTube as well, because I do multi-stream. So check out Moshman Gaming on any of them. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.